everybody. Thanks for joining us. So we're here with a long-stand friend of the ministry, Noah, who's been in our church, who's been performing, and that's where I first met Noah at one of, he did a rap, and I think then he was only in secondary school. So I'm gonna get over to Noah and just ask him, Noah, would you say hi to everybody and just introduce yourself?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Noah Alawiye, and yes, I'm an actor. I'm a rapper, as as has been mentioned. I do many things, and yeah, thank you for having me here. It's a real honor and a pleasure, and yeah, I'm looking forward to being asked questions.
Great, great. Thanks, Noah. So we also have two of our young adults in the church, Kirsty and Claudia. They are eager to hear what you've got and what the Lord has been doing in your life. So Noah, let's just start. So as I said last time, I met you in secondary school. Just give us sort of an insight into your journey from that stage up until now.
So yeah, I think when I first performed at the Lighthouse, I think I was 16, 17. I was just about to enter college, I remember, because it was during the holidays between um, high school and college where I performed. I remember that very vividly. And when I was younger, I didn't really know what it was that I was good at. I guess there were many things that I did to a decent standard. And one thing that I've always enjoyed doing, and one thing that I've always done easily, and it's come natural to me, is performing. So like you said, I performed at the Lighthouse. I performed in school shows and school plays. I performed at various events over my time. So it wasn't really up until like that age, 16, 17, 18, where I decided that, yeah, this is what I want to do. And this is what I want to pursue a career in. And all thanks to God's grace, I've been able to do that. Yeah.
Okay, great. So obviously we're looking at God's plan for our lives, God's
Hmm.
direction in our lives.
Yeah.
How do you feel at that stage? And this is something that I think everybody's asking, not even in church, even outside of church. There's so much confusion going on in this area. What's my purpose? What should I be
Mm.
doing, etc. Just give us some insight. How did God sort of guide you, and is it God that
Mm.
brought you this far?
Yeah, I would say so, 100%. I think every human being is born with a purpose, and it's something that you either find early, it's something you discover over your life. But one way that I've found, well, for me, how it worked was I looked at all the things that I was good at, all of the things that came natural to me. Like I said, when I was in school, I did, things, but there was always one thing that I was able to do well, and one thing that I didn't really have to try and like to work hard. Well, obviously I had to work hard, but one thing that I felt came easily, more naturally to me, and that was performing. So I would say that the thing that you love to do, the thing that you enjoy doing, the thing that doesn't give you too much stress, and the thing that you're naturally good at, that's your purpose. That's what you were designed to do, and you should pursue that. You should improve. You should work on it, and you should enjoy working on it because it's a process. You won't just wake up and be naturally good at what it is. You still have to work. And you still have to apply yourself and improve yourself. So that's what I'd say was my journey to finding my purpose.
Great, great. Let me put it over to the ladies. Ladies, anything else you want to on that specific question there? Claudia?
Yeah, I've got one. So you mentioned how sort of you chose the thing that came naturally and was sort of not too stressful for you.
Mm.
And that sort of guided you to finding your purpose. But do you think there's also something in things that are difficult? Like I know for a lot of people, like that I went to school with, they wanted to do medicine, but it was really difficult. Like you're spending so much time in university and education, getting all of these like qualifications. So do you reckon it's always like that simple thing, or like for others, obviously, like pursuing that thing that's really hard and difficult to go through?
Yeah, I definitely think that whatever it is that you decide to do, it's not going to be easy. Um,
Mm.
Especially even as natural as I found performing, there were challenges, especially when I entered drama school, the kind of stuff that I was being asked to do, and it was, very mentally and emotionally draining. But I think what carried me through and what should carry people through is your love for that thing. So say it's medicine, and say everybody knows how difficult that sort of style and that sort of career path is. But I think that if you really enjoy it and you love it, and it's something that you wakes you up in the morning, it's something that like you apply yourself in the work, like you enjoy doing the work, even though it's hard. Your love for that thing carries you through. So that's what I'd say. Nothing's easy in life, unfortunately. You have to apply yourself and work hard at everything. But I think when it comes to your purpose, that should still, your love for that thing should still drive you through no matter how hard it is. That's what I'd say.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Kirsty?
Um, you said earlier that everyone's born with a purpose, and it's something that you sort of find throughout your life. Do you think that it's something that you have to actively look for, or is it something that's revealed to you through God or through your journey or through your walk?
I'd say it's a bit of both. Definitely. Um, I definitely had to look for it, in the sense that it wasn't always presented to me, especially like the area of acting. I didn't know I was going to be an actor until I was like 18, and the opportunities in like high school or in college were very limited. But I had to actively look for a specialist school that catered to what it is. So I think it's a bit of both. I think it's something that you have to look for, and it's something that you have to, and it's also something that is in you. So yeah, I think you have to do a lot of self-reflection, and you have to sit down and be like, okay, what is it that I'm good at? Like, what is it? And then actively develop that and actively look on how to improve. And yeah, I think that's how you go about it.
Right. Any other questions, ladies, or over to you? Let's go to the next question.
Um, you say you sort of you didn't discover your purpose till you were 18, and so, and obviously your purpose, it will manifest itself in different ways at different periods in your life. Do you think that it's something that you can just find one day? You said you didn't find yours until you were 18. Should people worry about not finding their purpose?
No, not at all. I know so many people who I mean, I go to school with people who are in their 30s, and they're in the same year as me at drama school. People who went to the army, people who had a 9 to 5 at a desk job, and they weren't happy. So I think you still have to try many things. You're not going to find it right away, and if it doesn't come too early, you shouldn't be worried, because eventually at some point in your life you're going to find it, and when you do find it, it's going to be absolutely glorious. It's going to be so fulfilling. I remember speaking to one of my friends who's in his 30s, and he was in the army, and I remember speaking to him and being like, so why did you drop out of the army? Like that's something completely different sides of the scale, like being in the army and then going to drama school. Like what made you make that step? And he said, I wasn't happy what I was doing. Like all my life I haven't been like happy. So I decided to go down the generic path. I think his father or his family, they're very, military orientated. So he said, oh, that must be my purpose, since every other male in my family is doing this. But he said that when he did it, all the trials and all the grueling exercise that he had to do, he just said, no, this isn't me. And you have to find what's uniquely you. And if that takes a little bit longer, it takes a little bit longer. That's all it is. You eventually get there. So I don't think it's something that you need to worry about.
Okay.
I've got a question sort of tying in with that. You spoke of like not feeling happy in certain things, and then that telling you kind of you're not exactly in your purpose. Do you think happiness and contentment should be a factor to your purpose or not? Because I know, like, in comparison to some of the things that, say, God called people to in the Bible, it wasn't the stuff that made you happy. Like the example of Paul, he was constantly like going through trials, was in prison and all of these things. So is happiness, like, does that always need to be a factor, or like what kind of, is there a percentage, or like anything you can share on that?
You said happiness and contentment. And I think very two different things, actually. I think contentment, for me anyway, is just peace, regardless of, you know, what it is that you're in. Um, um, if you look at, like you say, like you mentioned, Paul, when he went to prison, obviously there's the great story of Paul and Silas in jail. They were still singing, they were still joyful in the midst of that circumstance. And I think that's truly what contentment is. Maybe happiness isn't the right word. I think peace and contentment is the right word, which means no matter what you're going through on the road to discovering your purpose, or while you're in your purpose, I think there should be a sense of contentment that, okay, things are bad now, or things have been bad for a while, but at least I'm doing what I enjoy. It's not, the past 3 years for me at drama school, it hasn't been rosy. It hasn't been very easy. There have been times where a lot of things have been asked of me, and I've struggled, but I've always felt at ease. I've always felt peaceful in the midst of those things. I've always been like, okay, how can I get myself back from this? How can I improve? How can I, just be content with all these things? And even though the things that are happening around you are very negative, I think your mindset is something that has to be right. You have to have the right mindset. And I'd say that contentment is a very big thing on this journey. Yeah.
So happiness isn't really like the factor, it's the contentment within it.
Yeah, I think there's an element of happiness because you have to enjoy what it is that you do. But even when things go wrong, I think that's where the contentment kicks in, I'd say.
Right.
I mean, you said obviously going off of that idea that it's to do with contentment that, you know, sort of guide you towards your purpose. It says in Proverbs, you know, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. Do you think that, you know, despite being in those challenging times and despite sort of maybe not being content, it's sort of, you know, drawing back to that idea, that thought and that knowledge that, you know, whatever I do, it's not for my purpose, it's for God's purpose. Do you think that that is also like important in determining what your purpose is, like for the rest of your life, I suppose?
100%. I feel that this journey that I've been on, it's only been through God's guidance. There have been so many like difficulties, so many things that have been beyond my control, and there were times where things happened that were good, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm feeling on top of the world here. I'm great. All these things are going right for me." And then something's happened that's humbled me, and I've been like, "Right, I got too carried away. I got too arrogant. This isn't for me. This isn't about me. How do I use my God-given talents, my God-given skills to glorify His name?" And I think it's a massive thing that you have to. It's the biggest thing because God's given you these skills, and God hasn't just given you these things to just let you go on your way and let you just make money and pay taxes or whatever. All these things have been given to you to glorify God. So you need to find how these things glorify God for you. That was a difficult journey for me because I'm like, how is me being on a stage pretending to be someone else glorifying God, you know? But then after praying and seeking God's guidance, reading the Bible, I found out that everything you do has to be to the glory of God. And the fact that you've done something well means that you're fulfilling God's purpose and God's plan for your life. And yeah, it's a massive part. God plays the biggest part in discovering your purpose and helping you reach that purpose. But you still have to give all glory and all honor to God at the end of the day, because without Him, you wouldn't you wouldn't be alive, and you wouldn't have the skills that you have.
Amen. Amen. Thanks for that. A question that I always pondered on, or that I hear people say a lot, which is biblical, obviously, it's the word. It says that your gift will make room for you.
Mm-hmm.
did you find that applicable in your life? Did you find that doors that you thought, well, I'll never be able to reach that, that suddenly opened, and you find that, you know, things are starting to happen?
100%. The a story that comes to my mind, and I think the most prevalent for me, is my first ever job. Because I went through a really rough time in my first year of drama school. Because obviously coming from a Christian background and being asked to do secular things in class, I really struggled with that. And then going into my second year, piling on top of that the workload. So I think it was in my third year. Third year was a little bit more relaxed, and I was like really focused on, okay, I can take this time to focus on me and my gifting and my talent. I was blessed enough to have an opportunity. A theatre company, a theatre who was affiliated to my school through like a couple of people. They were looking for an actor to be part of a play that they were doing, and I was put forward for it. And out of all my other classmates, I still don't know how that happened to this day. And fortunately enough for me, and all glory goes to God for this, I got it whilst I was still training. And that's something that it rarely happens for somebody who's still training in drama schools. That's still the narrative is you go, you do your 3 years, you graduate, you get an agent, then you get your first job. For me, it happened whilst I was still training. I got an agent and I got my first job with like almost a year left on my course. And I think that was the biggest example of my gift making room for me, because at the time I was questioning whether it was drama that I wanted to do, whether I'd wasted 3 years or I just spent 3 years having fun, because I didn't really feel like I was doing anything extraordinary in terms of like work. But then it was when I got that job that I was like, okay, maybe I am good at this. Maybe this is what I was made to do. And that was reflected in the fact that I got my first job early on. So I would say that your gift does make room for you. It's made room for me, and it will make room for you as well.
Mhm. And anything else, ladies, to add? Questions?
I've got one. So you mentioned like you do acting, and I do fashion, for example, and they're quite sort of more creative
Yes.
passions and careers. And what do you do when like your sort of passion and purpose, you know it, but then it doesn't really fall into what others expect of you, or it's not the typical accepted direction that your parents or other people might want you to go into?
Yeah, that was a big issue for me. I have so many friends who wanted to do more creative things, but then their parents were like, no, doctor, no, lawyer, no, all of this. And I think the biggest thing for me was showing my parents what it is that I can do. My parents saw my first show when I was 16, 17. The first ever time they seen me act, and that was around the time where I was convincing them to let me study it, not even at uni level, at college level. And they were like, no, why do you want to do that? And I remember them coming to see my first ever show, and they saw me on stage in all of my glory, and I did well that night. And people were coming up to them and saying, wow, your son is really talented. Like, you should, he should go to drama school. He should do this. He should do that. And then at that point, my parents were like, maybe we should let him do what he wants to do, because we've seen it. People are saying this. Maybe we've been a bit closed-minded, or maybe we haven't really allowed him to pursue what he wants to pursue. So that's one thing that I'd say. I'd say show everybody what it is that you can do. Show people your talent. You said that you're into fashion. Show them some of your design. Show them that this is what I do, and I do it to a very good standard, and I'm going to take this seriously, and these are all the career paths I can go down. I've got this figured out. Let them know that you've got it figured out. Don't just say, oh, I want to be on TV, and not like show anything for it. Show them what it is that, how you plan to get there. Show them, yeah, just show people who you are. Let them know who you are. Let them know that what you're doing, you're not messing about. You've thought about this, and you should reap the fruits of that, because I know so many people as well who've done that, and myself, it's worked for me. So yeah, that's one thing I do, is let people know.
Great.
Good. I think Claudia, you had an experience with that where you showed people. Do you mind sharing that? I know we're running short on time.
Yeah, so I'm in university studying. I'm going to my final year, and I should be starting on Monday actually. And in my first year, like I can also attest to like God sort of um, enabling your gift to make room for you. So in my first year, we had a competition kind of, and it was really, for me, I really didn't take it seriously. I was like trying to focus on my actual coursework because it was optional. And then in the last minute, I was like, you know what, actually, I'll put myself forward for this. And it was a competition to design a pair of gloves. And that's all I knew. I was like, okay, I literally did a few quick research, finished the thing on the night before the submission, and just sent it over. And then a few months later, I actually wasn't the first person to know that I won. Other people were like, did you see the email? And I was like, wait, what? And then, yeah, it turns out I actually won the competition, and my gloves ended up being made and worn by the Lady Mayoress of London. So,
Wow.
yeah, God is really good in that sense.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well done.
Thank you.
Do you mind sharing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not at uni level yet, so I'm still in college. And basically, I applied for a role in the student council, applied for student president, and yeah, it was sort of, it wasn't really, it was a half-hearted effort, I guess. Like, I applied thinking, yeah, it'll be nice to get it. I was up against a few people, quite a few people actually. There's about 7 or 8 other people applying for the same role, and yeah, it was a strange one because it was like you needed to campaign, but we weren't in college, so you had to do it online, and it was never done like that before. And it was at the end of first year, and you still sort of don't really know anybody, so I didn't really expect that many people to vote. And obviously, I won, the student election, and it was one of those things where I didn't know that it was for me. I just sort of did it on a whim, and then as sort of it was approaching, like the voting times, it was like, oh yeah, I can really see myself in that position. And I think going on that idea that like your purpose is not necessarily something that Claudia, you said you did yours on a whim. You did it the night before, you applied for it the night before, and Noah, you said that you weren't really sure if you wanted to go into acting, and your parents weren't really sure, but you did it anyway because you felt that was for you. I think when you can really like picture yourself and see yourself in that position, then that your purpose is rooted in that. And I think, that it is God's will when you can really see yourself, being in that role. I mean, I remember sitting there thinking, because one of the roles of the student council, like president, is at the end of the school year, you give an address to the students who are leaving, going up to uni and that. And, I could really picture myself doing that. And I think when you start to be able to see, when you start being able to see yourself in a certain position in a certain way, or when you start being able to see, those talents or those moments where, you're really in a period of success, when you see yourself, fulfilling God's purpose, you sort of, that it's something for you, and you have that gut instinctual feeling, I guess, that that's your purpose. Yeah. It's minority president.
Noah, just give us one encouragement for somebody who's seeking, still seeking where to go. What should I do? Well, what would you tell them?
One thing I'd say is be bold. Follow your heart. Be courageous in the sense that, like, try stuff out, and don't be afraid of failure. That's one thing. That's one thing I'd say. Failure is it's part of a process, and just put yourself up for things. Throw yourself out of your comfort zone. You never know what might stick. You never know what it is that you'll enjoy until you actually do it. And yeah, that's a piece of advice
Mm.
I'd give. Just be bold and be brave, and ask God and seek God's guidance as well, of course.
Mhm. Great. Claudia, anything to add?
Yeah, I guess a second, you kind of said everything. But yeah, definitely say seek God's counsel, and also like the counsel of those that have been in what you're thinking of doing, and get their experience of it. Because to me, I talked to other people who'd studied similar courses and found out how does it actually work, and see from their stories kind of picture like what Kirsty was saying, can I see myself being there? And that really helps to figure out what you want to do. Yeah.
Kirsty, any last insights?
Don't have any regrets about what you put yourself forward for, because if you've put yourself forward for something, then it was in God's plan for your life. You know, whether it turns out well, whether it turns out badly, you were there to fulfill that part of God's plan for your life. And I think if you regret that, then you sort of on the side, you don't believe fully in God's plan for your life. And I think to have those regrets is to realize that you didn't try, or you didn't throw your whole heart into it. And when you throw your whole heart into something, you won't have those regrets, because you know that you were in that place for the right purpose at the right time, to fulfill God's will.
Right, guys, as I said, that was awesome. Thank you for your time. We're gonna close it here, and I pray that all goes well with everybody, and keep on doing good for the Lord.